Blessed love and peace. Waiting on the beans to soften up. So in the meanwhile, share this joint. Continuation on the previous joint, specifically concerning I'm supposed to say this again. Drunk off self and feeding on each other. World society narcissism enveloping each. That being said, continuation from the previous joint, pornography and healing healthy well-being. Again, I basically describe it. It could be described further coherently, concisely, and otherwise. Some people process and perceive things in different ways. So when speaking to a diverse audience, a variety of kinfolk in an audience, there is often the necessity of articulating things in a multitude of ways. So here is another way of describing it, a specific component of it. Again, recognizing that when a man and woman have sexual intercourse, it is a joining of flesh. It is a mind meld. It is a body meld. It is also, amidst this and amidst all the greed, hatred, and delusion in these processes and indulgences and indiscretions and otherwise, the primary way a man molests a woman is bodily, physically. The primary way a woman molests and sexually abuses a man is mentally. When she presents her sexual prowess, that is mental molestation of a man. Get off the men need to be this and the other. Yes, just like women need to be protective and additionally. But a woman presenting herself in such a way is sexually molesting a man without even touching him. When being in public and additionally, she is sexually molesting men, children, boys, women. Plain and simple. It's the equivalent of a man walking around diddling and feeling up women. It's the equivalent, to be honest. We don't want to go into the whole equivalency or whatever, but that's to understand like the severity. And once a woman is in a man's head, puppetry. So when the conditions around a man, and this is addressing myself, when the conditions around a man are softcore pornography through the multitudes of presentations, walking in person, posters in windows, commercials, and otherwise, that is direct, literal, 100% molestation of the man, of his mind. And its severe effects that translates in it, the effects of that translate into other types of adverse behavior. And that's not shirking the man's responsibility in that adverse behavior, but again, when in the genuine interest of minimizing that adverse behavior and effects, it's a matter of recognizing what causes that, the precipitating causes. So all that being said, with regards, so I mentioned before that there are many different types of pornography, and all of it is harmful. All of it is exploitation, severe exploitation. Amidst that, there's different forms of pornography. There are different degrees of severity, and it's not excusing any form, but it's recognizing different forms. I mentioned before a while ago that when a man watches another man have sex with a woman, that's gay. To be honest, it is. It's homosexual. Getting some sexual arousal from watching a man have sexual intercourse with a woman, that's homosexuality, and that's not the point of this joint. But just to recognize that's further along the severity, and then also in that process, it involves the deflowering at the very least of the woman. She's no longer a virgin, and there's evidence of it. So it becomes further difficult for her to re-enter into society and be valued in a proficient way, because there's hardcore evidence of her promiscuity. So from that, going further into the softcore porn, the chat rooms, and self cams and everything else like that, those might be considered. I don't know how much there's a benefit in reasoning about this, but those could be considered less severe if she's just presenting herself. The whole all right, without getting into too much details or whatever, but there even in that scenario of her just presenting herself, where she's not having sex with a man directly, where she's not even having sex with a man at all, she's just showing her naked body or doing whatever else. There's degrees within that. When in that scenario where she's basically there's in a chat room and dudes are paying her to do different things, that's further egregious. That's further harmful on all sides. If she's just recording something, if it's just her thing, it's harmful and it's a self-affliction. But there's a consideration of that being less harmful than the further hardcore scenarios. And I'm getting to a point here. The point is, in the type of pornography where she's just simply presenting herself in a naked way, the consideration is this, and this is not about trying to excuse myself. It's trying to understand, or is better understanding the conditions, not just myself understanding, but other kinfolk understanding the conditions. So the point is this: it's not even the primary thing is not necessarily where the line is drawn between pornography and non-pornography. The significant consideration here is where is the line drawn concerning acceptable harm. Acceptable harm. If it's recognized generally, presumably at this moment, that a woman presenting herself naked in public is harmful for herself and for everybody else, okay. So if she does it on pornography and that's recognized as harmful, okay. But if that's legal, then wait, what's going on with that? But not only that, where is the line drawn? Because, again, when there are posters set up for going on a year where the woman is not necessarily naked, but her vagina is very visible, her pubic hairs are visible, if that's not harmful, if society considers that not harmful, when does it become harmful? At what point does it become harmful? That society recognizes it becomes harmful. It's already harmful, but at what point does society recognize it being harmful? When it's lingerie and a woman's nipple is showing through the lingerie. If it was just outright, again, we're getting into that whole gray area. But the problem is when society allows that gray area, then it allows a lot further than what it intends or wants to allow. And again, part of the concern is that when that becomes acceptable within society, when a woman, and I'm not on no high horse, I'm not on a soapbox, this is reasoning. Again, like I said, I'm no better or worse than anybody else. I walk with God continually, and this is part of the process of reasoning through it. When there's a lack of leadership and guidance on this earth, that's talking. So when the displays such as this, presuming the woman, the young sister, is over the age of 18, that's a presumption. She could be under the age of 18. Young women are modeling at young ages, since infancy. but even like in an increasingly sexual way, middle school, and further. So, and that's swimsuits, that's other things like that. So by the time 15, 16 years old, it's like, it's so conditioned, society is so conditioned in that respect. Point though is, along those lines actually, when that is done, and it's not even questioned, it's not even addressed or whatever else, too tough, then what is communicated is that is the acceptance of that. And if there's acceptance of that for that sister, that young sister, and there's acceptance for young children seeing that poster, school children walking by themselves, children walking with their parents, and additionally it's right in public view. If that's perceived as acceptable for that sister, then what if it is a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old doing the same thing, showing her vagina with or without pubic hair? If one is considered acceptable, not just for the woman to be doing it, presenting herself in that way, but to be presenting herself in such a way to a public audience, and that is not a hypothetical, that's not a that's not a rhetorical question or consideration, because again, at this moment, for years, for generations, there are 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds who are modeling and swimsuits, and additionally, and they're not selling swimsuits. They're hired to promote a pedophilia culture where the presentation of naked children's bodies, or nearly naked children's bodies, is normalized. And it becomes easier to do other types of abuses and manipulations in the everyday society experience. I mentioned before, modeling, dance, ballet, additional forms of art and visual performance and visual expression. And it's not a matter of being on a high horse, it's not a matter of pointing fingers. It's a matter of recognizing the harm that is being caused. What that harm is for each person, each being involved, each being affected by it. Because again, when a man sees it, when a boy sees that, that's mental molestation. And I think that's the basic thing to recognize. If kinfolk can't recognize that, then everything else I've said is just, it's not even pimp talk, it's just bullshit. However, when people do recognize the way a woman primarily abuses men is through the mind, and particularly through her sexual prowess. And it is as severe, if not further, and I don't want to get into the comparison, but it is as severe as men domestic abuse and beating a woman. Because oftentimes one leads to the other, and it's not excusing, it's not no excuse for what a man does, but to understand the cause and effect. Because when she shows herself in such a way, she's entering into the man's mind, and it stays there. It stays there, and it festers, and it manifests. And part of that manifestation is jealousy and insecurity and overcompensations and frustrations and otherwise, without the ability to communicate this, to articulate, or to process what's going on. And that affects in all different types of directions. And that's when young women do it. That's when girls do it too, when girls are hired to do it. So that's the concern, that's the abuse that's going on at this moment. And that's the abuse that's going on involuntarily. And that's the mind meld That's the mind molestation that's going on involuntarily, beyond a man's volition and beyond even a man's necessarily control. And it's still his responsibility, which is part of the challenge. So, anyways, that's some of it. We're going to leave it at that. And again, share peace and blessings to all. And supplications, mindfulness, patience, calmness, prayer, samadhi, teshuvah, reconciliation with the Most High. Known by many names and beyond all names, the oneness of the universe, spirit, truth, love. Wherein all beings exist. The spirit within each of us and beyond all of us. From where we receive life, from where we receive purpose within life and guidance within life to fulfill this purpose. Remembrance of the purpose and the guidance, and faith and trust amidst the ebbs and flows, the rises and fallses and steadiness, the balance, straight path, and the accommodating waters. All our relations in continuing movement and stillness. We give thanks for the curses and the challenges. We give thanks for the blessings and the lessons, the learning. We give blessings for the sharing and the patience and the diligence and the discipline. So all thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace and Rastafari.